Those are desert places. Those are wildernesses. Where things unspeakable happen. Into such desert places, into our world, God sends a word. We're going to start talking. And the first thing that Luke has John the Baptist say is from Isaiah about another wilderness experience. Make straight in the desert, make straight in the wilderness a highway for our God. Why? Because once before, God had gone through the wilderness, gone through the desert places with his people for 40 years, leading them out of Egypt. And what was that like? Almost every time you turn around, the people of God are grumbling and complaining. And yet God doesn't leave them out in the wilderness and say, all right, I'm tired, and walk off. But instead continues to work with them, continues to lead and guide and direct, and brings them to the land. So when Isaiah is writing about the Babylonian captivity, he's saying, you're over here in the Tigris-Euphrates, across the Arabian desert from Israel. God's going to lead you across the wilderness again. And those pits that you can't dig yourself out of, he's going to raise up. The barriers in front of you, the mountainous that you can't climb over and don't think you can find a way around, he's going to bring down. It's a promise that God is one who is in the midst of our lives going to be bringing hope. So that there may be some words spoken. What did Israel do with its wilderness experience? It wrote it down. We have the record, and they were saying over and over again, do you remember what ninnies we were? We just got across the sea. God opened up a way where we were trapped. He brought us through the sea, and as soon as we got on the other side, we said, oh, Moses, you brought us out here in the wilderness to die. Well, how stupid could we be? But we were. And God continued to work with us. So that we, when we go through those pits in life, and we go through those broken relationships and things don't work out, and yet we are here, that we can learn with them and say, no, when I was in the deepest hole and I saw no way out, nevertheless, God brought me to this day. He went through that hole with me. He brought me up out of the pit. He brought down the barriers in front of me. I'm here. And that we learn from that kind of experience to do what St. Paul said in that second lesson, that the one who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. That we begin to learn from our experiences of life, those pits and those mountains that stop us from getting anywhere, that depression that drives us nuts. That in all of that, coming through that, we learn to say, God's still with me. That I live by that promise until I finally learn enough that I can learn to die by that promise. That we have learned, when I was in this situation, God helped me out. When I was in this situation, God helped me out. When I was in this situation, God helped me out. Guess what? When I get to my dying, I can trust that likewise to God. What Israel learned in the wilderness was that they could trust God. The John the Baptist brings to people in the wilderness by proclaiming this washing, this baptism of repentance that says, turn around, head toward God, and find that you can trust him. He's the one who will bring the mountains down and the valleys up. As we learn that experience, then we become more and more prepared for this advent of Christ. Christ coming. That coming that says, yeah, he may do some refining. Maybe we need to get our act cleaned up. Nevertheless, he's the one at work in us, bringing us to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. The Word in our wilderness, in our deserted places without words. The Word is one of promise. The Word is one of hope. We live with that kind of hope because the government, the military, taxes, none of that is going to provide us with what we need. They will not be our rescuers, but God will. Amen.
Long